Coming up this week on Beyond the Vibe, we have Jack Edwards, lead guitarist of Piston.
Still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He ran and just dived over the merch and t-shirts everywhere, right? and they started fighting in the hotel room, and like the beds this is in France, and the beds were being thrown, like bottles being, windows being smashed, everything. It was like a proper movie scene. I debated stopping playing because it was really crushing. And he called me up like, mate, I've just received the issue, like, you're going to freak out. He said, there's a whole page on you.
Hello, welcome to Beyond the Vibe, a show that cuts deep into the world of music.
My name is Aaron Day. I'm lead guitarist in the UK band These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here with the one, the only musical videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Vasey.
Yes.
How you doing, man?
Oh, we're doing all right. This is kind of a new one, isn't it?
Yeah, we thought we'd open it up a little bit. You can finally see the men behind the voices
In our entirety this time, not just video interviews. It's the entire show start to finish now.
That's it. We thought we'd switch it up a little bit, try and bring a new energy to the show, and I think the interview we've got this week is just another extension to that. It's a good vibe, wasn't it?
Yes. We'll be talking with Jack Edwards just in a bit.
From the band Piston.
Yes. Great interview.
Oh, it was killer, wasn't it? Great vibe.
Yeah, it's. We say this every time, don't we? We go, oh, he's a good guy.
Or girl.
Yes.
Or girl.
But this is it, isn't it? I think these interviews are showing. We're all normal people.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well, we're all, and it's for the first time ever, we're all in the same situation as well.
Yes.
And I think today's interview with Jack in particular was a great example of how much it means to actually reconnect in terms of that, in a musical sense, like we're out gigging.
I could feel the enthusiasm.
Yeah, man, he's fucking
it's
great
great
guy.
Yeah, it's great.
How's your week been?
Oh, it's been good. We're currently snowed in.
I've just had a look when I had a tiddle, and it's still pissing it down with snow, isn't it?
So if
I might be.
If you're snowed in. Yeah, we're snowed in too.
I thought you were going into Ryan's deep bath. Then I thought, if you're snowed in, could look warm.
Yeah,
get your duvet on,
warm in a warm embrace,
and embrace the warm dulcet tones.
Yeah,
Beyond the Vibe. I've been listening after our conversation last week, where you pretty much said that I can't believe you don't listen to the Black Crows.
Yes, this astounded me currently.
I have been listening to a bit of the Black Crows, through your recommendation as well. When I put the post out, I put a clip of a live version from the Chris Robinson Brotherhood up on my Facebook, and a dear friend of mine, Paul Thompson, who's a promoter from Knots, great guy, commented on it with the same thing. He's like, I can't believe you.
I noticed this, and I was like, yes.
and he also said, I think you'll be into a few other bands called Cinderella. Now, I've always been Cinderella because my mum was a big Cinderella fan, big Tom Keffer fan. So this week's kind of been, I've been listening to bits of Cinderella, which is very 80s, but it's got that late 80s thing that bands like Junkyard had, and obviously Guns N' Roses, and then the Black Crows, where it started to go a little bit 70s again. So as you see through time, like we discussed a lot, the retro always comes back. It always attracts people and indulges people. And yeah, I went for the second album because that's where most of the hits are. But you actually recommended Black Crow's first album, is probably better for me anyway.
Yes, I can never remember the full name because it's a bit of a
Southern Sympathy of
Southern Musical Companion something or other that I can never remember the name
that on my gravestone. Thank you very much.
But it's got obviously keys in the title, but it's got those kind of Southern vibes, which I think is more your street.
That was the only thing with that second album. With Shake Your Money Maker. I felt like somebody may have said to them, "Oh, this sounds a lot like the Rolling Stones. You should do more of this." And because I'm such a riff guy, I do struggle when it's that sort of because a lot of the Stone stuff's in sort of open tunings.
Yeah, it's like quite loose.
Yeah, and it's very chord based and stuff, which is really cool. But it's never been something that's really pulled me in. I've always been more Led Zepp, riffs, and that, and Sabbath and stuff like that. But they're my band that this week I'm lending my ear a little bit more to. So yeah, thanks for that recommendation. It's all part, and I think we chatted before off air. I do. You are, me and Ryan. Whenever we meet up to do a show, we normally reflect on naturally when we first arrive, and we'll chat about what we've listened to. And you do recommend more sort of new bands,
I try and do that.
Open my eyes, my ears, even a little bit more to that side, which
Yeah, I try and do new bands, but I mean, I've been listening to Black Crows recently as well because they've just released like an unreleased song from that Shake Your Moneymaker era.
What's it like? Have you heard it?
Charming Mess. It's good, but you can tell why it didn't make it on the album.
It's always the thing with them sort of songs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. See, the problem is with this song is it sounds a bit too much like the Small Faces. It's just that little bit too much like them, but I still enjoyed it for what it was because it's like we know it's an unreleased track that they've just added on for this re-release because it's I believe it's like 30 years now since Shake Your Moneymaker came out. So that made me feel old. You know?
Well, to be fair, we were both probably busy being born.
Well, I was like -1 when this came out, but it's one of those that's kind of ingrained in my memory.
I'm trying to. Because the 90s is almost like an unopened pot of bands for me. You know, like we said before.
For me, it's a bit sparse for like the kind of stuff I enjoy. But there's some great stuff in there. People are quick to dismiss the 90s.
I like Soundgarden. That was a band I got into my teens a lot. I'm quite open to Soundgarden.
What about Jeff Buckley?
I've done a bit of Jeff Buckley, but not a lot.
His first album, stellar.
Yeah, we did it when I was at school. We studied that because that was it was a immensely classic album, isn't it? Like, and
it's really good.
Lyrically, it's very strong.
Jimmy Page was like he's the best thing since sliced bread. That's what he was. Basically.
Jimmy Page loves sliced bread.
Yeah, he was killer. He was like whacking the butter on. He was
but yeah, it's I mean, the Pearl Jam's another one. People always say, "Oh, you'd love like for Hartwell, our singer." Always saying
he's big on Pearl Jam.
Yeah, he's always saying like fucking. The guitarists are very similar to the way that I play, so I try and because there's a lot of Hendrix influence in there, so I listen to it. And I can enjoy it, but it just doesn't take me, you know.
Yes, especially
Pearl Jam, but maybe it needs more time. Everything needs time.
Yeah, for me, I prefer like early Pearl Jam, but I know what you mean. I've never been able to really get into them. Like they're not like a band that I go, you know what, I'm going to sit down and have a drink and listen to Pearl Jam all night.
Yeah,
I just don't really connect with them.
I feel I connect more with sort of Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. You know, I
see. I can't connect with Alice in Chains.
No, I don't imagine you connecting with Alice in Chains.
I mean, do I look the guy that sings it? Alice in Chains.
I don't know what it is about Alice in Chains, but like there's something more about Stone Temple Pilots as well. What Heartball's played me of them. So if anybody listening has any 90s bands they'd recommend for a man that's basically 52 at heart.
Yeah, what is your recommendations for Aaron?
Yeah, for the 90s bands to make
90s recommendations.
Yeah, because I've done 90s Guns N' Roses, but I don't see that as a 90s band. It's late 80s. It's a classic band anyway, you know.
Yeah, everybody knows them.
I know the Maiden 90s albums, you know, but what's the real music of the 90s is yet to happen for me, so please let me know your recommendations.
Yes.
So for our main feature this week, we're asking the question, what makes an iconic guitar? Okay, so maybe the first thing we need to say is, what do we mean by an iconic guitar, right?
Yes. We believe like there's a combination of things, isn't it? You know, obviously the look of it.
Yeah.
You know, needs to be memorable.
Yeah.
Maybe the sound.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously there's a part in, you know, to do with the actual player, but you know, they all have that kind of signature sound.
Yeah, I think that's the key. You normally put an iconic guitar, particularly with an iconic guitarist. You know, it comes hand in hand. You know, and it takes the guitar.
Well, the thing is, like we've discussed in the interview that's going to be in a bit, people are like, "Oh, I want to play that because so and so played," and then they're drawn to it, and then maybe, you know, they kind of build their own sound off that. Or, you know, then they eventually make their signature thing in the long run. You know, it's that kind of going up.
And I think the ones we've picked out are definitely signature guitars that relate specifically to that guitarist. Because some guitarists still play certain models, like Slash plays a Les Paul, you know. Martin Knopfler from Dire Straits always used to play Strats, you know. But this is more than that. This is a thing that I think stands in the test of the history of rock and roll just as much as the guitarist that played them.
It's like that connection, like they come as a pair.
Yes,
the 100%. Guitarist and the guitar, they have to come together. Like if you were to put these picks that we've just chosen, if you were to put them with different instruments, you think, God, that looks wrong.
Yeah, Zach Wild playing a cello just doesn't.
Yeah. I want to see, like if you put Zach Wild on a Fender.
No, you're right. If you get Zach playing a Strat because he's a big guy as well, and obviously he's had quite a few different iconic guitars now. Owns his own company.
Yeah.
So with Zach in mind, he's your first choice.
He is my first choice.
Big Zach Wild fan, are you, man?
Yeah. Well, it's mainly from when I was like a teenager. But the iconic Bullseye.
That's the one for me.
Yeah, it's the one that you've seen so many people buy, haven't you? Like everybody, like when they were about 18, had a Bullseye Zach Wild guitar.
I always think Guitar Hero.
Yes,
you could have pick different guitars.
Well, there was that, and they released like a Bullseye version for the Guitar Hero thing.
All right, so it's like the actual Guitar Hero, like
the actual thing. So this is it, it's that extra level, isn't it?
Yeah, big time, man. Yeah. So what do you think makes the Bullseye in particular and that iconic? Is it just the shape? Is it just that
It's there's obviously the look of it, but the way in which Zach has all of his guitars, they have like this massively wide neck.
Yeah. They're very hard to play.
I imagine like they're incredibly hard.
Baseball bat.
Yeah, it looks massive. Like I don't feel like my hands are big enough. That kind of thing, but yeah, it's just there's everything about it. From a non-musician perspective, it's those two go hand in hand. I wouldn't, as I say, I wouldn't put Zach with like a Fender, something like that. Just look wrong.
From a sonic perspective as well, like because he plays down-tuned riffs, he's
quite riffy.
Yeah, he's got like active EMG pickups in it, so they, when you whack distortion through them through his big Marshalls, they really roar and come to life. Whereas if you did that with a Strat, it'd be quite bitty and wouldn't really work. So there's also that sonic element there. My choice is my first one. I'm going to say Tony Iommi SG. Crosses on the fretboard. Now, obviously, he's had a few different incarnations of SGs. When I saw him when they did the reunion tour, he had this guitar that I think is known as Animal or the Animal or something. Bad Monkey, that's it. Nothing to do with an animal. Well, it is an animal, but not the animal.
A monkey is an animal. Last time I checked,
that's a lovely insight into how my mind works. There, it's a guitar, monkey, animal. Yeah, eventually I get to the end of the path. So yeah, he's called the Bad Monkey, I think, and that's that just really distorted metal-looking one that looks like he made it in the foundries where he used to work, where he lost his finger.
Yes,
But I actually my second sort of proper guitar was an Epiphone Tony Iommi Custom with the heads with the cross inlays, and it's just for me, it was just awesome to have something like that, feeling that iconic. But it's difficult as a guitarist. Because I didn't want to be Tony Iommi. I'm a massive Tony Iommi fan, but I don't want to be going out if I'm not in a Black Sabbath tribute band and doing that sort of thing. So for me personally, I'd really struggled to be able to have that as my main guitar and I think for me that just shows how iconic it is. I don't, unless I'm playing in a Sabbath tribute band, for me to have that sort of guitar is maybe similar to the Bullseye Les Paul. I think unless you're there and as soon as people see that, they're going,
they know exactly what it is.
He's an Iommi fan.
Yeah,
he's going to be playing Sabbath riffs. It's going to be a Sabbath band, and it sets that connotation, which for me shows how iconic it is. And a little chat about the man behind it. I think Tony is just such a signature guitarist. So the two of them together, I think it's like we spoke about this before. Rock stars have this way of almost being like cartoon characters.
Yes.
Because they just seem so sort of mythical, and I think that the whole Headless Cross identity and Tony and stuff, it's like, I say Headless Cross because one of my favourite Sabbath albums is Headless Cross, but obviously he had the cross inlays. But yeah, I think that's ultimate iconic guitar. What's your next one?
Next one, I'm going bluesy. Rory Gallagher.
Oh yeah, class choice, man.
Beaten up Strat.
Yeah.
It's that kind of. It looks like it's been on a journey.
Just a bit.
Yeah,
just a bit.
There's something about it, when it's been beaten up. Clearly, it's been on a trip around the world. It's done everything. It's been with you. It's like a part of you at that point.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just iconic. I've seen countless guitarists have beaten up Strats. Because it's like it's a thing now, isn't it?
But Rory's looks very individual to him, and I think it
got real character.
Yeah, man, and I think it relates to how he is as a guitarist. He was a workhorse, he'd play any gig, and he'd play it to his full potential. And it was more about the music than the image or anything like that.
That's it. I think that's the thing in itself. The fact that it looks like just a standard Strat, but it's like, you know, it's developed character over time.
Yeah, because of the amount of action that he's put it in.
Like with the amount of touring and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Feels a natural choice.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. My next one's another SG player. So I'm going Angus.
Yeah, I mean, again,
you can't. For me, you imagine Angus going out and playing a Les Paul or a Strat, man. It's just, it doesn't work, you know. And there's something particularly when, like, I think he spray painted them black when they did Back in Black, obviously. But in the 70s, he used to have this sort of cherry red one.
Yes, but he's gone back to it now.
Has he? Right. Okay. So he's gone back to that. Obviously, like, the new album's got that more sort of power up's got that more sort of vibe to it. And that's the one I've put in my mind, you know, without going too corny, like School of Rock, you know, that kind of kind of thing, you know, and that is such a signature thing for Angus. You put the two of them together. And the thing of an SG from a sonic perspective, it's a different guitar to a Les Paul, same sort of pickups, but it's just got this, because of the shape and the way it's put together, it's got this bite to it, you know, which for me just works so well with DC. So yeah, I don't think you can have this conversation without putting Angus and an SG together.
No.
Final one before we...
Final one, again, for me, it's a natural choice, and it would be criminal, I think, if you didn't have him. Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
You know, kind of in many ways, kind of similar to the Rory thing. It's that kind of workhorse.
Yeah, he had like are you going for the white Strat? Are you going for that? Yeah, the classic one.
And he just beat it up, and you know, he burnt one. And
I do think of, when I think of Jimmy, I think of a white Strat.
That's what I'm saying. You know. Iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's simple.
There you go. You see,
told you if we practiced it, we'd say it at the same time.
It's the simplicity of it. You know, yeah.
Nothing more needs to be said.
Can't even say anymore.
My final one is double neck SG.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page, Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Nothing more needs to be said.
No, I mean, nobody can use one now without people going, Jimmy Page.
This is the problem. I mean, because Pray For Me is a bit like our Stairway, which is the song for people that don't know the band that we end every gig with ever since our first ever gig. I've contemplated it, but then the trouble is you're falling into something that's not really your own at that point, aren't you?
This is it, though. All it is a two-headed thing, but he's made it his. It's like nobody can use it now.
It's difficult. I mean, for people that don't know the two-headed, so you have a 12-string on top, and then on bottom you have a 6-string electric. They're both electric.
Yeah.
And you can switch between the two. So obviously Jimmy would play the 12-string for the rhythm of Stairway, and then switch to the bottom one. And it's just the rock and roll mythology of it. Again, it just seems like it's just... Like it's when you're a kid and you look at pictures like that, you think this is awesome. You know, like we go back to that cartoon thing. It almost feels like it's not real because it's just so cool and so rock and roll. You know, and one day I'll do it. I'll do a double-leg Gretsch. Double-leg Gretsch.
Yes.
James is listening. Gretsch. I'd like a double-legged Gretsch if such a thing.
I was going to say I don't even know if that exists, but
I'll make it. I'll get 2 Gretches and then sellotape them together.
Solder them together. Bit of gaffer tape.
Bit of gaffer, not
Sorted.
a problem.
Done.
I mean, I'm not known for things going wrong in gigs, am I? So that'll be absolutely fine.
Not at all.
So in conjunction with our topic this week, I mean, it just made sense to speak to Mr. Jack Edwards of Piston, who obviously iconically plays Billy Duffy of the Cult's White Falcon.
Yeah.
And with that has been able to form, you know, a relationship with Billy and obviously toured with them. We had an amazing chat with Jack, and you can hear that now.
Yeah.
So we're here with Jack from the band Piston. Thanks for joining us, Jack.
Thanks for having me. It's very kind of you to have me on your show.
I appreciate it, man. So one of the reasons we started kind of interviewing people on a weekly basis was because we want to try and bring the community together again. You know, as obviously gigging seems to go further and further away, you know, so and with, you know, yourselves and Piston being a big part of that, you know, it just made sense to link up, man. So it's good to see you.
Yeah, a fellow Gretsch artist.
That's it.
Yes.
Man. We're on the Gretsch. We'll dive into some nerdy gear talk. I'm terrible for this. Normally, most interviews, Ryan's rolling his eyes because we'll have
I don't know.
We're getting to gear chat.
I get lost.
We'll try and keep it under wraps. So our subject for this week is we're looking at what makes a guitar iconic. Okay, so obviously you've got the different things we're going to be chatting about in the show is obviously over the years you've got Tony Iommi, Slash with Les Paul, and obviously for yourself, you know, you play the Falcon, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get more iconic than that, you know. So we thought you just seemed like the perfect guest, really.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind of you. It's yeah, it's cool, man. I like playing it. It's fun.
So, like, let's go like right back to the beginning. What made you like pick up the guitar in the first place?
Like to play or that one.
I just like to play, like right from like what was that moment? Like, did you play anything before, or was it always the guitar?
No, I mean, I was sort of, I went for instrument lessons at school, but because I was too naughty when I was younger, they wouldn't let me have them. So that was that. And then I remember there was like these lads, I'm talking like primary school now, I'm talking like really young, and they set up like this little band, and I'd never seen anyone, you know, an instrument or anything before. I was like, that's cool. And I sort of gravitated towards the drums. But when I sat on the kit, like when I was a little bit older, it just didn't feel right to me. And then I went to my first gig, which was the Cult. And then I saw Billy playing the Falcon and the guitar. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to play guitar. And then that was it. I just started playing after that. But it took weight. I played Les Pauls for a while, and I still do in the Piston live set for a song or so, but that's just because I don't have a Gretsch to replace the Gibson at the minute. Hint, hint, James at Gretsch. But yeah, so I started playing Gretsch. Well, since 2018, I've been playing, but really it was that first gig. I caught, I got given Billy's plectrum. I was like, that's really cool. I want to do that. And I just started playing after that.
That's cool.
I think most guitarists or most musicians in general, they do have that moment, don't they, when it's like you say, like with yourself and Billy at that first gig. My first gig was Whitesnake, and obviously they had Doug Aldridge at the time, and that was similar for me. It was like, you know, I just wanted to be Doug, man. It was just immediately linked with me, and it was just set me off on that journey. So obviously, kind of looking through your development as a guitarist, unlike most people, such as myself, I kind of play guitar as a release from trying to find my feet in the world of work, you know. But did you go and study music? Did you go and do that as a
yeah? I did 2 degrees basically. I did a music performance degree, and then I did a music business degree as well.
Awesome.
So sort of, I was the only lad at school where they let me do 2 music. So I did music and music tech, and they was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to do both." So they let me do both. And then I went to college and did music performance, and then I went to uni. And then I did music business, which that was the best one really. Right. And then I started up my own teaching business as well. So I'm sort of well in that, you know.
God, so it shows how pivotal music can be, doesn't it? Because like you said, you was like, you know, more of a naughty kid, you know, in them early school years. But was it so as soon as you had something that was your own, it was like, right, I can focus on this, and this can take me on my own journey now?
Well, for me, I think by the time I was only naughty when I was like a kid, because I guess I just got bored. But when by the time I went to secondary school, I started playing, and I just got really into it, and it did take over my life actually, because I remember the 6 weeks it got gradual. So when you have your 6 weeks off, I'd spend like 2 weeks playing guitar consistently, but then by the time I was in year 11, like I didn't even leave my bedroom. I'd just sit all day trying to learn Joe Satriani songs, and then my mum would be like dragging me, like, "Come on, you've got to get some fresh air." And then that was it. I just play I play for my job for teaching. I'm playing like 8-9 hours a day anyway. Plus, I still practice for 2 hours a day, regimented practice anyway. So I've never really stopped.
It's a good mentality to have, though. And in terms of you going to uni and getting the 2 degrees, what was your long-term plan with that? Did you want to become a session musician? Did you plan to go straight into teaching?
You know what? I sort of did it as something to do. But the business one really helped more than anything. I remember some of my peers got annoyed that I've got a first and I haven't got a job. And I was like, well, you're using your degree for the wrong thing. Like, you know, the reason why I use the degree is to help with the band, and it helped massively because I do all the management and everything. So it helped a lot. So that's why that was the best one I did. And that was the one where I did sort of have a clear vision of like, I'm going to use this for this. But with the performance stuff, it was just basically going over stuff I already know, really. already knew.
Yeah. While you were studying, were you in a band at that point, or like?
Yeah. I was in Piston. It was in the early days. Piston, like I say, early days. It's probably 2015. So it's still been going quite a while. But that was at the point of when we changed over singers to Rob, and we just sort of pulled out of the scene completely and just was writing a lot. And we could have done with a kick up the arse a lot sooner, I think. But we sort of wrote an album and then we scrapped it and then we started again. And then that's when we hit it hard in like 2018, 2019, where we started writing in 2018, and then 2019 we wrote the album in a couple of months, really. Which, looking back on it, I think we could have spent we've basically done the same album twice but rewrote the first album again. But looking back on it, I think we could have maybe spent a bit more time on the songwriting, I think. But that's where we're at now, anyway. So
it's good you can have that reflection, because I mean, from obviously with me and the boys in Rivers, I think, like, just from chatting to you, you know, we might have quite similar mindsets. Where I always struggle to. I say to Ryan a lot, I have quite a strict idea of what I'm trying to achieve in my mind, and I always struggle to achieve that, you know. And I always feel like I just, like you say, that period where you just keep going back and keep trying it, you know, I always find myself doing that, you know. And I think it is a good practice, because I think it helps you understand where you want to be as a band and the journey that you're on, and trying to reach that sort of pivotal conclusion for where you're at that point.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't matter who you are. You always compare yourself to someone else as well.
Yeah.
And I found that's honestly, I think that's one of the biggest thieves of, like, you know, we did a lot of amazing stuff in 2019. I'm so proud of what we've done. But then you look at other bands and you go, oh, I want to do that, I want to do that. And but then, like, equally, there might be some bands, I'd hope to think as well, that I hope that some bands are looking at us in 2019 going, bloody hell, I wish we were doing that, you know. So it's this big sort of circle, isn't it?
We noticed from, like, doing a bit of research that at some point you were in Guns to Roses. How was, like, that experience for you? Because obviously, like, being in a tribute band, it's a different kind of ball game, isn't it?
Horrendous.
This is gonna be, I'm glad we've opened up this.
No, I'm joking. I've got a lot of time for Gav. Gav sort of, I was still at high school, and I was like 14, and I learned I could play every Guns N' Roses. I still can. I'm sort of a big fan. And I said, can I come down to a sound check and jam? I was like, yeah, okay. So I went down to this sound check at this venue and jam with them. And then he said, do you want to get up and play with us later on? I was like, yeah, that'd be amazing. Like, I'd never really played with a band that had really learnt songs that well before. Like, it was just sort of, you know, where the drummer actually played like Matt Sorum and had the cowbell and, like, knew all the hits. I'd never done that before. So it was like this amazing, and there's loads of people there as well. It's this amazing rush. And he said, when you're 18, I'm going to give you a job. And then I was 16 and got the job because he needed a guitar player. And I spent like 17, 18, 19, 3-4 years in that band. Hated dressing up as Slash. Hated that. That was the worst part. Like, I used to enjoy the sound checks more because I didn't have to dress up. But now I've got a lot. He sort of. I was very well equipped for, like, the bigger shows we did a couple of years ago with the Cult. I was nervous, obviously, but it wasn't. Some of the boys in the band hadn't done a show on that magnitude before, but with Guns N' Roses, there were often weekends when we were playing to like 14,000 people. Granted, they weren't there to see my band or the music we created or anything, but neither were they when we supported the Cult, really. But it sort of prepped me quite well for that, I think.
It's good musical education, definitely. You know, like you say, playing, particularly at that young age, playing with maybe older musicians, like you say, that have really honed their craft at that particular thing. It's cool for you to be able to slip in and then sort of get to their level. You know, by the sounds of it, you did it pretty quickly. You know, and you seem like you've got your own character as a guitarist as well, man. So I imagine that was part of the frustration, really, is that you've got to slip into another character, you know, rather than expressing who you are, you know, in some regards.
That's exactly it. I mean, I'm very grateful for Gav because he really built up my sort of my confidence really in playing. One day you're playing to 2 people, the next you're playing to like 2,000. And I've got some horror stories from being on tour with them, like some absolute, like the wig falling off and like, oh man, like the wig fell off in front of like 5,000 people.
Brilliant.
I've never felt like such a dickhead in all my life. And then, so there was that, and there was just so many things, but it just builds you up to like, you can cope with anything then. Once you played in that band and you've been in all them different situations, you're a bit of a Terminator, you're built for anything, then you can just sort of just roll with the punches. But I'm very, that was the big thing for me, is that I spent so long like trying to be me. Then when I'd have to slip into play like Slash, I didn't really play like him. The only reason why they brought me in really was because I was reliable. I could play well. I knew all the songs note for note. But when they wanted to do the Chinese democracy stuff, like the more shreddy stuff with Bumblefoot and the Buckethead stuff, they brought me in because they wanted someone that could do that as well.
Right.
So really, my playing style, I used to get a lot. I was frowned upon a lot by people that would watch the band, because as big of an inspiration as Slash is to me, I don't think I play like him at all, really. And I used to get a lot of friends when I wouldn't play like how he did. But equally, I was sort of bought in for the Chinese democracy stuff, I guess.
It's interesting because it's that difficulty, because like we're saying with the character guitarist thing, you know, we've all got styles in which we play and natural sort of identities that come across, you know, and like I say, you've definitely got that. So it's difficult for you to, because I know like for me, when I'm improvising or when I'm trying to kind of get into that musical mindset, I naturally go to myself as a guitarist rather than trying to impersonate, you know, whatever you're trying to do in that moment. So I imagine that's really difficult, because it's like you're trying to battle that all the time, you know, when you're doing the tribute band stuff.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, I was still quite young, and looking back on it now, I would play a lot, I'd dial it in a lot more to sound like Slash. I would have, looking back on it now. But like 18, 19, it's sort of like my willy's bigger than yours sort of thing. So you just want to shred and show off, like, I'm a better player than you, I can do this, I can do that. And it really wasn't, looking back on it, it really, I could have dialed it back a lot more and put on a better tribute performance, but you know, I don't play like that anymore. I don't shred my arse off at all. I'm not interested in that now, really. I mean, I practice every day at that area, and rhythm playing and everything like that, but it doesn't interest me like it did when I was like 18, 19, trying to get one up on all the other players. It doesn't interest me now.
You grow a little bit, don't you, and you learn that actually the rhythm stuff's probably more important. So obviously you during this period, it seems like you kind of had different things that you were involved in, and Piston was always kind of behind all of that. And you was with Inglorious for a short time as well, weren't you? How was that experience?
Oh, I got booted out of that band for not being good enough.
Really?
Yeah, true story. And you know what? They've got a bad, I don't want to say they've got a bad reputation, because I know it's going to be on a podcast, but they've got a reputation. But it's a rock and roll band at the end of the day. I've got to be careful what I say now, just in case it gets.
No, sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, we're not trying to like create drama or anything. Yeah,
but for me, I was 19, and they were like, I think the only one that was close to my age was Nath, but Nath was like 26, 27. So he was my age then. I was at 19. Granted, they've got some great players in now, and I like them a lot. But for me, there were certain areas of my style that was very underdeveloped, and I don't think I've ever really been that honest about it, to be honest. And I remember I was in the studio, and there was areas of my rhythm playing wasn't good enough, and my lead playing was great. But there were certain areas of my rhythm playing that wasn't locking in. Same with the lead stuff, that wasn't locking in as well as it could have locked in. And in the end, and I completely understand the decision, and I probably would have stood by it looking back on it as well, I wasn't right for that band. Now, playing with Piston, we were all sort of the same level then, but with that band, you're playing with like Colin and Phil and Nate. You're playing with super high caliber players that were a lot older than me. And I hadn't played with them sort of people before. So when I got kicked out for essentially not being good enough, for not playing, you know, the way it should have been played, really, because it was almost like a live album made into the first album. And my writing wasn't really developed either, to be honest. So when that recording went on, I was panicking. I was shit. I was really bad. Can I swear on this podcast? Because I've drunk a few already.
Of course you can, man.
Free reign.
So that was that. So it was devastating to get kicked out, because they went on to do some big tours and stuff. Absolutely devastating. And I debated stopping playing, because it was really crushing, right? Especially that it could have been handled a lot better as well from their side. And I'm sure Nathan would probably agree. But what it did for me, and I remember me and Nathan were loggerheads for a bit, and I did sort of broke the piece, and I went, thanks, man. Like, it was the best thing that happened to me, because it made me really go back and work really harder than I've ever worked on guitar playing, at nailing, playing in time properly, locking in with clicks, syncing clicks, playing with a metronome every day, playing with different drummers, playing with different grooves, pulling behind the beat, ahead of the beat, on the beat, and bringing that into my playing. It made me like 100% better musician, like way better. And now I play them playing to a metronome. I didn't even know what to do. I was no idea. I'm playing ahead of the beat. I don't know what that is. Rushing. I know that now. So when I went away and was kicked out and replaced by someone who was, Andreas was great. I went away and I worked really hard. Now that's something that's always stuck with me. So even I was writing a couple of songs with Colin. It was the bass player, the best musician I've ever worked with. Amazing musician. And yet I'd be playing, and I part of me, I was going around his house, and I thought, right, this is the test now, to see if all my hard work has actually put me in the same stead as him. And we were recording. I was so nervous to lay down the track. I was like, mate, that sounds great, like syncing the click. And it was like, how many years? So that was this year, last year. 5 years of sort of like anguish of going, I'm never going to be that good. And then I got in the room with him. I was like, great, perfect, sound.
Oh, that's sick.
It was just like, I went, mate, I said, I couldn't even tell you how nervous I was to come here today. And he's like, playing it perfect, mate, syncing the click, sounds great. He says, you've come on alone. I was like, and then it was at that point when I was like, now I could go into that band and play that stuff. And I'd be very confident in knowing that I'd be able to play it, you know, just as good as the people that wrote it. So that was a really big turning point for me as technically, really. And it helped my teaching, and people never really pulled me up on them areas of my playing before, because probably I had teachers that didn't really know what that was either. They probably weren't that developed themselves. But now when I'm teaching my roster of students, it's the first thing I look at and go, you've got to pull back, you're rushing, stop doing that, play ahead if you have to on this part, because it's punk, you know. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then really, I felt like it was destined to happen, because I wouldn't have got to tour with my musical hero. And I wouldn't have got to tour with Glenn
meant to be, isn't it?
And I'm very grateful for the fact that past me didn't decide to jack Piston in, and then I would have got kicked out of the band. I would have been left with nothing. I'm very grateful that I stuck to my roots, stuck with the boys, and then I think it happened for a reason, because when I got to tour with my, you know, ultimately the bloke that inspired me to play. And he's become a good friend, which is even weirder.
That's it's great when those things happen, isn't it? Because, you know,
that's the joys of. I mean, me and Ryan were chatting about it, weirdly enough, before we came on. You know, about how the weird way that life presents you these challenges. You know, and for you, and I fucking really respect you, man, because you rose to that challenge. You didn't let it put you down, and you've been rewarded at the end of it with the ultimate reward. It's like it was life's ultimate test, really. You know, to have that opportunity and it be something that could be such a significant, could be taken so many different ways, and a lot of them negatively, but you weren't going to let that happen. You fucking grabbed it by the scruff of the neck, and you deserve that reward at the end of it. I really appreciate your honesty with that as well, man.
Well, I mean, I don't think Nate wanted to be quite as. I can be brutally honest with it now, looking back, because I'm not 19 anymore. I'm 26, going on 27. So that's like 8 years or something like that later. But no, it destroyed me because you sort of you get promised that you're going to be touring with this band. You know, I've got an American visa somewhere, which just grants me to work in America when we were going to do the American tours. And then it gets ripped out from underneath you, and you don't know why. You're thinking, well, what's wrong? Because I didn't know what was wrong with my playing. I had no idea. I knew something wasn't right, but nobody had sat down with me. Looking in hindsight, what really should have happened as a band that works together is that somebody should have sat down with me and gone, this is the problem. This is what you're doing. This is how to fix it. Because I didn't know what the problem was. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what was doing wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's like taking your car to a mechanic and it's broken, but if they don't actually know what's wrong with it, they could just be trying to fix things that are fine. I think looking back, if that would have happened, it would have been a lot faster.
Yeah.
So I'm quite a fast learner, I think, with stuff like that. But I would never change. And I'm very grateful for Nathan for giving me the opportunity because it made me grow. And that's really important. And I'm glad that I'm where I am now because, like I say, I got to tour with some great people.
Yeah, that's great. Going back to Piston, how did you guys come together? Was the sound and the influences there from the start, or was that?
Well, my mum used to teach Brad and Luke at school. I say teach, she was a teaching assistant, so she used to sit in on the lessons and help them and stuff. So I was always aware, and I remember going to watch Brad drummer, Luke's the guitar player, if anyone that's watching doesn't know. And Iggy was the bass player, and they had this whole band thing going on. And I remember when I was young, we went to watch them, and I just thought Brad was I hope he don't watch this because his head could be big enough at times. Brad was super cool. I was like, he looks like Tommy Lee, he looks sick. And then that was that. It was left like that. And then there's a whole story to this. So their guitar player at the time, the other guitar player, Lardy, he was a lovely bloke, great. He had some issues and he wasn't turning up to rehearsals or whatever. And Brad went, do you want to come down and jam? I was like, yeah, okay. I was 17, I think, 18. So I went down to jam and he turned up at the same time. And I'm stood there and I had a stupid haircut at the time as well. And he's like, is he replacing me? And Brad's like, no, we're doing a wedding band. And then all the shit hit the fan, obviously. And then I ended up sort of in. So there was me, Luke, Brad, and Iggy. And we wrote songs. We just wrote for a year and a half, just because we didn't have a singer. And then we found a singer, which was Steve, our first guy. And we did a couple of songs with him. And we released Leave If You Dare. And that did quite well, considering. And then Steve left, and then we got Rob in. But Rob was actually, when I was looking for a singer, Rob was my first choice anyway. But Rob wouldn't join, and he was he said, "I'll join when you're good enough." That's what he said. Proper frontman thing to say, isn't it? So we went with Steve anyway, and then eventually Rob. When I said, "Look, we need a new singer," and Rob's like, "Okay, I'll join." And then, because he'd seen that, I get it as well, because Rob lived down south and he didn't want to join a band that were, just sort of, he didn't know who we were. We didn't have anything, didn't even have anything recorded. So he didn't really want to invest into something that wasn't right, I guess, for him.
No, that's cool. I mean, so obviously in 2013 you released the 4-track EP, Playing With Fire, and the year after released the single. So were they both with the original lead singer then?
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of that EP off Spotify because I can't stand the songs on it, but I can't get it off.
Because and then I imagine, because you reflected on it a little bit, so we won't go into it too deeply, but obviously then you had sort of almost like a 5-year build up to that. So would you say that self-titled debut is who you really are as a band and the best expression of who you are?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And that was really hard, actually, sort of, because we released the single and we got on Planet Rock and we did quite well. And but granted, we did have a couple of press people doing our press, so they did help a little bit. And then it stopped because Steve left, and it was sort of you see all these bands that weren't like, with all due respect to them, they weren't where you were. Then suddenly everyone's overtaking you, like on the motorway, and you're thinking, and you've just broke down on the side of the road, and you're like, so that was quite difficult. But what we did do, we wrote the album, and we were working with like a guy that was going to manage us at the time. So we wrote the first album, and he said, it's not good enough. I sent it to a few people. The songs aren't good enough, and he was dead right, they weren't. So we went with a new producer, which that wasn't anything to do with the old producer. James was great, and he even remixed one of our latest songs. But we went with a producer that was a songwriter as well, and he helped us write songs. And that's when the album came out, and that's when I sort of sourced Noble. I was like, let's get Noble in. So we got Noble in, and Noble was great. And the combination of me and him working together, because we worked quite well together, we sort of got some really good results for 2019.
So like 2019 was a big year for Piston, but also like a big year for yourself, signing the endorsement with Gretsch, obviously, which of course led to you meeting your hero there, Billy Duffy. What was that experience like when you did first finally get to meet him?
Well, I'd met him a few times before, but just as a fan, he'd probably, if I asked him, he probably wouldn't even know. So Noble had the idea. He's like, why don't we do a thing for Gretsch? You both got albums coming, because Sonic Temple, the reissue, was being released in October, and our album came out in September. So like there was sort of a thing to work with there, and people like a good story as well.
Yeah, man.
It was a very heartfelt story. Like he inspired me to play. And then I've went out and bought the guitar and, sort of got this thing going for myself. And then he said, why don't you come out and tour with us? And then people really connected with it. People really liked it. So we went to John Henry's in London, and we recorded like this video interview. And we had like this, that was the first time I've ever been in any sort of guitar magazine. And I was in Total Guitar, which was I've got like 10 copies downstairs.
That was immense, wasn't it, man? Like, as a guitarist myself, like it's like the 10-year-old dream, isn't it?
Oh, it's mad. Like I remember he called me up. I was driving to my girlfriend's at the time, and he called me up like, mate, I've just received the issue. Like, you're going to freak out. He said, there's a whole page on you, because we thought it was just going to be like me this big and like Billy being Billy all over the magazine. He went, this is mental. He says, I haven't had like this sort of coverage since Satriani. Wow. And I was like, oh my God. But then I couldn't find, when it come out, I couldn't find an issue anywhere. All right, so the day of release, he's got it. And I know I'm in the magazine. There was like a 6-page spread on me and him. So there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pages in Total Guitar magazine. And I couldn't find a copy. So I'm like, I stopped off at we had a gig in Northampton, I think it was. And I stopped off at every services and not one had one. And I found one later on at Sainsbury's. And you got to be a dickhead once in a while, ain't you? So like I opened it up on the page and I paid for it. And I went, the Sainsbury's guy, he really couldn't care less. I went, he's a good looking lad, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he went, yeah, I guess so, yeah. But he obviously didn't know it was me because I had my hair to the back of the hat on.
It's like, who's this guy?
And my girlfriend at the time.
I'd have tackled up to the ground in WH Smith for a copy of that. Like, I bet by the end of it, you were like, this is happening. I don't care how much it takes.
My girlfriend at the time was just like, oh my God. Yeah. I was like, you got to be a dick once in a while. But Billy's great. So we've got quite similar stories, I guess, because he was inspired by Johnny Thunders and he received a pick off Johnny Thunders and he was telling me about it. And we sort of have the same, he gave me a pick. So we have quite a lot of weird sort of things that are very common and we got on really well. So after that, we did the tour together and that was mental. And then, so I hadn't spoke to him for a bit, and a student of mine was walking his dog. This is a great story. A student of mine was walking his dog. So this is like last year now, around sort of like September time. And I had Billy's email, but like, what do you say? You know what I mean? Like, Like, it's you don't want to come across as like a fan, but then you are friends, but then you sort of go, well, I don't know if I should just message him, see if he's okay, because he's a fucking rock star. Like, what's he want to do with me? So there was that sort of like, do I message him? Anyway, so I hadn't, because I just didn't want to look like a dick, I guess. And then my student was walking his dog, and he had like this bicycle behind him, sort of rung his bell. And he turned around, and it was Billy, right? And then my student Paul went, "Hello, mate," as if he knew him. And Billy went, "Hello." And he said, "Do I know you?" And Paul went, "No, but I've heard a lot about you." And he said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I'm taught Jack Edwards teaches me guitar." He went, "Oh, Jack, lovely lad." He says, "I haven't heard from him for a bit. So get him to email me. I'll send him my number and we can have a chat." And he told me, he's like, "You've got to email him." So I emailed him. And he's like, "How you doing, mate?" And he sent me his number. And then he texted me on the Monday. We hadn't spoke for a bit. And he's like, "Hi, Jack, Billy here." And I was just sort of like, this is fucking mad, this is. You know what I mean? Like, he texted me. And now it's sort of, I forgot about all the rock star bullshit now. He's just my friend. And like, I'll text him, say, "What do you think of this amp?" You know, and he'll be like, "Oh, it's a good amp." And he'll go, "Do you want to go out for dinner? Do you want to go for lunch?" Or I'm like, "Yeah." So part of me as a friend is just like, he's just my mate. You're the part of me, like the 10-year-old me inside me is going, "What is going on?"
Yeah. No, he sounds like a dude, man. I think that's what we all hope for when you get to that point when you're kind of, a bit of an icon or a bit of a legend or anything. I think if you can still go back to that roots and be cool to people and build friendships with people that, at one time looked at you as being the rock star you are, I think that's a killer testament to his character.
And it's the same with Ian Astbury as well. I was very nervous to meet him, like as anybody would be, because it's Ian Astbury. And I'd heard a lot of, you hear horror stories about rock stars all the time, don't you? And he was lovely. He was great. Lovely, lovely bloke. Sat having a Sunday dinner with him.
Mad.
As you do. Yeah.
And then Deggy, who plays in Gorilla Riot, he was like, "I'm having Sunday dinner with Ian Astbury," because he was teching for me. Right. And I went, "I know, it's weird, isn't it?" He was like, "Yeah, it's weird." Just going on eating. Yeah, it's great.
Right, let's have a quick gear chat. Ryan gives me allocated time.
You've got
just to get a bit nervous. So obviously you're rocking. Is it Billy's signature Falcon that is your main thing?
Yeah, that one is. As much as I love him, I might take his name off the top because I feel like I've rode off the back of him. I think I've got every penny out of it, to be honest. So I might replace that with just a normal silver one. But yeah, it is. It's great. It's a great guitar. Then there's the sets on. I'm nearly falling off my bed here, but I don't need to. There's the Scepter one there, which is great. I've only managed to do one gig on that because everything else got cancelled. Yeah. And then I got this 12-string. That's great.
That's lovely.
I tricked myself with that. Yeah, that's cool. And then I got this blue one here, which is the funny story about that is that James was going to send me the. If anybody's watching this and doesn't know about Gretsch, when Gretsch send out the guitars to the guitar magazines, they can't resell them when they come back. So what they do, they give them to their artists to use, and it's more press and it works out well for them. And the artists are super happy because they get some amazing playing guitars, and we all love Gretsch for that as well. So he was going to send me a Sunburst one, but when he opened it up, the neck had snapped.
Oh shit!
He's like, "Mate, I'm really sorry." He says, "But I'm going to send you this one instead." And to be honest, I did, but I remember seeing the blue one on the website. He went, "But these are the only colour choices." I was like, "Well, just Sunburst looks quite cool. I'll have that." But the blue and gold looks the best. And then it turned up as the blue and gold one, and I was really happy. So,
is that the Broadcaster Junior?
This one is, yeah. I think you've got the same one, haven't you?
Yeah, man. I was just about to say, I've got the one in Cadillac Green with the gold hardware.
That's nice. That's beautiful.
Mate, the story with that is, it was when we first linked up with Gretsch. We had a session in Gloucester, Dave Draper, right? And there's only so much I can say because it's me and my missus had a bit of a wild night, right? The night before, and I was meant to pick Ryan up. He was filming the session for us about 6 o'clock in the morning. Right. And I was chatting to James and he said, oh, look, because it's coming over from Holland or whatever, it's probably not going to come in time for this session because you're leaving at like 6 a.m. or whatever. And he'd done really well. He really pushed through to try and get the Gretsch delivered before this session, but it didn't look like it was going to happen. But I had this wild night with my missus, which is a whole other story. And then I woke up about 7:30 in the morning, about an hour and a half after I was meant to pick fucking Ryan up. I was like, oh, fuck, what am I going to do now? And then got dressed, got all my fucking glad rags and my twat shoes on, drove all the way to Newark, which is about an hour in itself, picked Ryan up, drove all the way back, and the Gretsch had been delivered. And
No
way.
way.
I was like, oh, shit, this is like the band were all waiting there, yeah. And it was there. And then I took it down to this session and literally just tuned it up and plugged it straight into my Marshall. And it was just there straight away, like the pickups. Because before that, I had a, similar to yourself, I'd always been a Gibson man. I'd always been Les Pauls. And I had one of the P90s, the gold tops, when Gibbo got took over. And I've really struggled with it. It was just I couldn't get it to cut through or do what I needed to do. But as soon as I got the broadcaster, it was just straight there, man. Like it was the clarity and just the. I think Gretsch's are underrated because when you whack them with gain, I think they really come alive, you know. And I imagine it's really cool with Billy's model as well, having that big body and then whacking some gain through it. I imagine that's when it really comes alive.
Well, I mean, when I've been in the studio with the producers and that, they've always gone, yeah, that one. Like, there's never been sort of. I think I tracked a couple of songs with the Les Paul, but that time I didn't have any. I only had one Gretsch at that time anyway. Probably would have tracked it with a broadcaster, but they've all gone. Yeah, that works really well with the Telecaster that Luke was playing at the time. So
good match.
But, yeah, it cuts through brilliantly. But what is funny, I remember when Deggy was taking for me on the first show of the Cult Tour. Everyone thought that was Billy's, obviously, and he sort of walked out with my guitar to put it in the stand before I went out. And all the crowd went, yeah! Like, Billy's. And then I walk out and pick it up and I must have been like, oh, fucking hell.
Dive into Kemper. I mean, I said it to Rai, trying to explain sort of the whole Kemper thing. I mean, obviously, I've played a lot of Kempers and the feel and stuff of them is great. You know, it feels like an amp. And I imagine for someone like yourself, it's, you know, who's playing a lot of guitar, that dependence, you know, that ability to know it, you're going to get that tone every time, you know, and the so much flexibility around that. I imagine that's really cool.
They're great for, I've learnt this because I've got one and I think they're amazing. I really do think they're amazing bits of kit. They're great for the sound guy. They're great for, you can have any rig you want. You know, you don't have to rebuild your pedal board to put a chorus pedal in there. You can just put it in, you're done. And it doesn't take any tone out or anything. The only thing with them is that you get the sound and it sounds awesome, but it's not the power behind you.
Right. That's
okay.
Really
so
good, man. I've never used one live. I've only ever used it.
So I use it with a cab, and then I have front house coming out of it as well. And then when you have it coming through the monitors and that, it does feel really big. But on its own, it doesn't push air like a JCM 800 would. Now, when we were on, Billy used a couple of 800s and Vox altogether. That's the biggest wall of sound.
Yeah, that's my amp an 800. I've had it since I was about 16.
They're great. They're, you know, and I think I will at some point. The reason why I went with the Kemper is because I can have a good clean, a good crunch, a good rhythm, and a good lead, and I've got everything I need. Then
pedal board, the Kemper board.
Yeah. But on that, there's a Proctavia made by Voodoo Labs, which is my favourite pedal. There's a Pog, because it doesn't do a Pog effect very good at all. Yeah. And there's a Talk Box, which I don't really use. But if I'm feeling a bit adventurous, I'll bring out the Talk Box. But in general, it's very, very small. But I will go back to an 800. I will get an 800. I had a Marshall DSL, which I didn't like at all. Played that for years. Why do you play gear that you don't like? You know what I mean? Like, why do you do that?
This is the question I asked, like, musicians. Like, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm not happy with that." I'm like, "Why use it?" You know?
I've had a massive journey with my 800 because I got into fuzz pedals about 2 or 3 years ago when the pedal obsession kind of really hit hard, and And obviously, like I like to crank an 800 and pretty much have that preamp just going for it, and fuzz just compresses. So I've had that whole journey of trying to find like almost so it sounds more like a plexi that's cranked. So I have the preamp around 6 o'clock rather than really cranked, and that gives me a bit more room for fuzz. But yeah, I mean it's interesting when you say about the Kemper, because at live, I mean I tend to have barely any monitors and I have the amp just as loud as I can get away with, because I need to feel that power and that natural sustain, you know. So it'd be interesting I'd like to play a Kemper live though. I'd like to see the difference, and I'm open to that experience just to see, you know, the difference really. And I imagine that ability to be able to have loads of different amps, especially when you're searching for tones and you're on that journey, you know, I'd enjoy that definitely.
Well, the thing I will say about the Kemper, which you're more than welcome to use mine at a gig if you want to use it. It's you don't fight the amp. There's no fight. So I've always preferred the feel of digital amps anyway, because I learned on digital amps. So when I did get to a tube amp, it especially with the DSL I had, I think it's probably just individual to that DSL. I could never play how I wanted. I was always like having to wrestle the bed, you know what I mean? Just to get a simple lick out. With the Kemper, it's almost like, mate, do whatever you want. I'm just chilling back here. And you can just shred, like, and it's fine. And then that's what I love the most about it, that you're not restricted by certain things. But that could just be the amp that I was using, because I played an 800 before, and it's very easy to play. Like, I could play what I wanted, and I wasn't fighting it like I would be like a DSL or a Plexi. Or I'm not really a fan of having an overdrive pedal in between. I like getting the overdrive out the amp. But I do like 800s.
Yeah, it's that feeling, as you say. I think they've got a low end response that just lends itself to naturally that sort of hard rock thing. But obviously the Plexis can be quite rough when you really crank them. You know, obviously in the 60s it was killer. You know, you fucking blow heads off with it. But to actually play like a crank Plexi is fucking hard work. Whereas the 800 just feels like it wants to work with you. You know, and it's still that wrestling bear, but it's kind of like it lets you win every now and then. You know, and I like that relationship, you know, with it. I like to whack overdrives in front of mine just because I love that sustain and that big game thing. But we're falling into a hole now, so I'm gonna bring it back in. But obviously, being a part of the scene with the boys in Rivers. I mean, like you say, 2019 was quite a big one, didn't it? I'd always felt like, you know, you and the boys in Piston had this great following and a load of love and good vibe to the band. But obviously this was showcased when you were voted as part of that Planet Rock competition, and you got to play the Rising stage at Ramblin' Man, which for me is, I mean, it's one of my favourite festivals. I just think it's that perfect marriage of old school rockers and the younger generation coming through, and the same with the older bands and the younger bands. I just think it's class. How was it for you guys playing that Rising stage? Was it quite a cool moment for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some highlights that year, and that was one. Because I think it just meant a lot to us that, you know, we were voted to play that. And we won that vote by a mile. I remember looking at, I looked at the voting poll, and Chris, who runs Ramblin' Man, was like, dude, you've won by like, I think we had like over 1,000 votes. I'm not even joking. And the other bands had got like 200-300, I think, but we blasted it by a mile, and that meant just seeing that in itself, I was like, bloody hell, that's really cool, you know. And there was by the time we walked out on the stage, and it was packed with people, and hopefully we have been confirmed to play again there, whether it happens this year or next year, probably more like next year now. We hope to be back.
Yeah, we're down there for this year, but because we had a weird thing where we were meant to do the Rising stage last year, and then obviously it got written off, and then they came back to us and asked us if we wanted to open the main stage, which was mad for us, man, because obviously, like, you know, that would probably be our biggest opportunity. So we'll see what happens this year, but hopefully we'll see you there. So obviously 2020 was a bit of a write-off, but which we always try and look positive, don't we, towards the end. I mean, what's plans for yourself and Piston for 2021 to make it a year to remember?
Well, we have been writing a new album, and we have got songs done. But it's like as soon as we start picking up traction, the brakes get put on us again because of all the lockdowns. And that's my Newfoundland barking because his mom's just come out. You can hear him. He's a big boy. So like as soon as we get going, the lockdowns come in, and then we're just stuck then. And so when we're allowed to see each other again around Brad's house and we're allowed to mingle, we'll start picking it up again. I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 songs that are completely done. So it wouldn't have took us, I think, if none of the lockdowns would have happened, we would have blasted that. We would have had a second album out by now. But studios closed, not being able to see each other. It's not that easy, is it, at the minute? But we are writing, and we have got some 6 shows that are booked, and they'll probably be moved over to next year. We're meant to have a tour with Bad Touch coming up. We're meant to be supporting Thunder on an arena show. That's going to be a big one.
Amazing, man.
Yeah, that's mad. Rambling Man Fair, SOS Festival, Hard Rock Hell. We're playing Hard Rock Hell just before. So us, TerrorVision, and not Ugly Kid Joe, and then Tiger Tails as well. That'd be fun. It's nice to be on the main stage for once, because we spent so many years on the second stages and the third stages, and now it's nice when people say, no, you're on main stage, you deserve the spot on the main stage, that's really nice. And I'm sure you feel the same about it with Rivers. It's nice when you get recognised. You've played the dog holes now. It's time for you to start stepping up, and that's really nice when you get that. But I think as a manager as well, you do, as a band that's built up over years, you do have to put your foot down. And when they go, oh, it's on stage 3, and you go, no, we deserve more than that. We've played with these bands, we've released this album, we've had this and this. We deserve to be on that main stage, And then I think when you put your foot down, people do respect that, and you'll say, take it or leave it. We don't need to play your gig. But if we're going to play that gig and you're going to offer us anything, we deserve to be on the main stage, or at least, main support on the second stage, if it's a bigger band than us. And you just got to know your worth as well, I guess.
Yeah, we had that difficult transition, definitely, because you pay your dues. You've been in the trenches, and you've had to go through that period to get where you are now. And you definitely have to, like you say, know your worth to be able to develop into the band where you want to be. And we've had the same frustrations when we replaced our bass player, where it was like you're looking around and you're thinking, oh, there's bands that we've been on the same level with that are passing us. So when you catch up and you feel that momentum, you're very, you're rightfully sort of proud of it and want to defend it and respect the level that you're at. So no, I think that's, I think you're on the right track there, man, big time.
Yeah, you just got to be. It's about knowing your worth, but then it's also about knowing your place as well. Yeah.
Balance.
Yeah, because when I was pushing for main stage, it was like, well, Tiger Tails are going to be above you. I'm like, fair enough. Fair enough. Tiger Tails deserve to, they've been going a long, long time, and they've had a lot of success. But you definitely need to know. It's about picking and choosing, I think. And I've definitely tried, as the guy that books the gigs. It's only recently, last year we brought on an agent, which he hasn't been able to do his job because there's no gigs. But everything else from there was just like me thinking, do we do that gig? Yeah, let's do that gig. And we played to like no one, at times. But you learn, didn't you?
It's part of the journey.
Yeah, it's good fun.
So finally, a question that I like to ask like everybody that comes on the show, kind of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with any band, one from the past and one from the present, who would they be?
Everyone would say different ones. If you ask, Brad's would be AC/DC if you asked him, or Airborne, because he loves Airborne. Mine, I've already toured with one of my favourite bands, so like I've already ticked one. So probably the one that I ticked, and Glenn Hughes, I ticked that one as well. That was good. But Guns N' Roses, back in the day though, when they were mad,
like prime Guns N' Roses.
Yeah,
because
the Ritz, like 1987. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at the Ritz. Now I don't drink or do drugs. And I will not speak on behalf of my friends that are in bands, and I won't speak on behalf of anybody that's in my band. Okay, they're all good boys, and we behave ourselves. But I just think if Piston was in with them, we've had like we played a show with Bad Touch once, and I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do nothing. I'm very sort of straight laced, so I'm always the sober one. And I remember the boys had bottles of wine. They were smashing wine and beers after we played this gig with Bad Touch, and they started fighting. They just do when they're pissed. They just start fighting. And like, if you've seen the guys in my band, I'm like quite small. They're like not ripped, but they're big boys. Yeah. Robbie's ripped as well. And they started fighting in the hotel room, and like the beds this is in France, and the beds are being thrown, like bottles being, windows being smashed, everything. It was like a proper movie scene. And I remember I was in a separate me and it was just me actually in this hotel in my room. I opened my door to see what was going on. I stuck my head out, and all I saw was Stevie. I think it was Stevie or the bass player running like out the room up the corridor. He went, mate, I can't cope with them. I got to go. He was like shit scared of what was going on. And I walked in and there's like blood and they're just like fighting each other. And I was like, so yeah, I think if we were on tour with like 88, Guns N' Roses from 88, I think it would be pretty mad. You know, I'd just be sat there just watching it all. I'm the sensible one, sat there just watching it all unfold and just thinking,
you're a mile.
Yeah.
And we got kicked out of Planet Rockstock once because Brad was smashed again. There's like a recurring theme in there. And they had the merch stand full of T-shirts, like piled on the T-shirts. And Brad had a few. And we were all sat at this table. It's the very first one we ever did as well. Very first gig for Planet Rock. And Brad went, watch this, I've got an idea. He says, I'm gonna jump the merch stand. I was like, what do you mean? He went, watch. And he ran. Still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He ran and just dived over the merch stand, T-shirts everywhere, right? and the Planet Rock staff was screaming at us, like, Piston, get out! We got kicked out. And I remember we played a gig like a couple of years later, and one of the guys that was doing the T-shirts was there, Johnny Dello. I don't know if you know him. He's a great lad. And he was like, we still talk about you guys, you know. I'm like, what do you mean? He went, do you remember when you got kicked out for partying and jumping the merch stand? And he said, legendary, mate. Still one of the best times I've ever had. And I'm just thankful John Norman has us back. And I said, sorry, John.
Testament to the band, man. If you could do all that shit and you still get invited back, you're doing something right.
But it's not like... It's not like they pretend to be. It's not like an act. It's like even when we're not at gigs, shit still goes down all the time anyway. You know, like there's fighting and there's like just misbehaviour. So like when we do get a gig, it's just a little bit heightened because people see it.
So that's your band from the past.
Yes.
Guns N' Roses. Who's your one from the present? New band Bill.
Rival Sons.
Do you know what?
That's a popular one.
Yeah, pretty much most bands or musicians we've had on have obviously gone for a classic band, but then it's normally Rival Sons because I think they're our generation's classic band. It seems, you know. Yeah, we're both big Rival Sons fan, man. That album's class.
Yeah, fantastic album. And I actually, what is nice is that when you get bands like that, and they are just because they are a little bit older as well. I think Scott's like in his 40s, isn't he? Or it could be approaching late 40s. And I remember I messaged him on Instagram just asking for some advice. And I never expected a reply back at all. And he, it's nice when they really take the time to do that. And he sent me some big messages of like, look after yourself. Always retain your merch rights and the money for your merch, and just gave me some pointers of like if we ever did sign a label of what to do. And he didn't have to do that, and that was really nice of him, really, really nice of him. And I did say at the end of the message, I'd like to talk with you someday soon. And at that point I got left on red. But then I'd like to talk with him.
I think similar to what we're saying with Billy and the Cult, and it's. I think I always like it when bands do that when they've reached a point of a certain level, because you've got to remember they've done what we've done. They've played to Two Blokes and a Dog for a Mars bar. And Sons have been around for years. And they've just started to really kind of rise up that ladder. So it's good. I'll always love it when musicians still stay in touch with that. And still remember that's where they've come from, and that we've all been on the same point in the ladder at some point or another. So yeah, that's badass.
What was just sort of talking about that is this is a testament to how nice of a bloke he is, right? Is that I hope he ain't watching this because I don't want to be blowing smoke up his arse. As much as I want you to get loads of views.
I was going to say, I hope he's watching.
Yeah. I was going through a really tough time last year, just for some personal shit and that. Just not with a band or music or anything, just like with some things that was happening. And I hadn't spoken to him for quite a while. And it was at this point my student Paul said to him, he's having a bit of a tough time. I mean, you should go and you'd make his day if you sent him a message. And he did. And he called me, seeing if I'm all right. And then he went, do you want to go out for lunch? And he paid for my lunch, and we went out 2 or 3 times. And he was very, he had a lot of time for me. Do you know what I mean? He never lets me pay. Like, I've tried to or as much as I can, but like he wouldn't let me pay for anything. He says, this is all on me. I want to make you happy, For a rock star who plays who's, you know, worth millions he's worth, and he's got his own signature Gretsch, and he's in a band like the Cult, and for him to reach out to me and say, "Are you okay?" I meant a lot.
Yeah, big time, man. No, that's awesome. You know, I've really enjoyed chatting to you, Jack. I'm sure Ryan has.
Yeah.
I really appreciate how honest you've been, you know, and how much you've kind of, you know, shown the, you know, gone through the different stories and chatted about Billy. And I think a lot of people who've been listening to this that have been at maybe that point you was at, you know, obviously with Inglorious, and how that you've gone from that point to where you are now, I'm sure will take a shitload of inspiration from that. So thanks for your time, man. Fucking really enjoyed it.
I had a really good time.
So that was Jack Edwards of Piston.
Do you know what? All I've got from that is nothing but good vibes. Like, I feel like it was such a positive chat, man.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. You know, it was honest.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for that, and really positive, and just it's everything you want in an interview from my perspective.
I agree.
You know, yeah.
It's killer. Like, we're both honestly, we're both buzzing from it, because it's something where when we started the podcast, we wanted to be able to link up with people that we've not seen, obviously during the lockdown. People with stories and gigging stories, you know. And Jack said he doesn't do many interviews, but he's a fucking great person to interview, because he just came alive in that sort of environment, you know, and it was really enjoyable to be a part of. Yeah,
it was natural and real, and you know, I think it's a great reflection on him and the band.
No, I agree. So for those who have not checked out Piston, as Jack said, their self-titled debut album came out in 2019, and as Jack said, that is the best representation of the band at this point. Yeah. Hopefully in 2021 we'll see some more of that new material that he said they've been working on come out.
Yes, so go and check out Piston.
We'll see you all next week.
Yes, we'll see you next week, and you can, if you go on Facebook, you can find out who we have next week.
Indeed, yeah, that comes out every Wednesday.
Yes, if you go on a Wednesday, you'll find a new trailer with a new guest every single week.
And we've got a very good guest next week, haven't we, Ryan?
Yes, we do.
They can only know about that if they check out the
exactly. This is it. It's going to remain a mystery. And so, tune in next week, and drop us a like and subscribe if you like as well. And we'll see you there.